Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today's video is going to be start of a series that we're going to be doing, and things that we take for granted. You know, there's so many devices that we use on an everyday basis that, you know, people just don't know the history on them or even care, except for me, and hopefully for you. So anyway, I'm going to start with flashlights, and they've got a pretty interesting history. They started out in 1899. There was a English inventor named David Missel, and he patented it, but he never really put them into production. And so an American manufacturer, Conrad Hubert, bought the patents, and he owned American Novelty and Manufacturing Company, and he thought there'd be a lot of interest. They made little lights and stuff for ties and scarves and stuff like that, and so the flashlight was the end result of it. And so the name was changed to Everready, and of course it's been around forever, still making batteries and stuff today. So the flashlights, I don't have any real early ones, and I would be amazed to even find one, because the earliest ones, the tube was made out of a combination of paper and a fibrous material, and they had a brass reflector, and then it had a bulb in it, and then they had just a little switch that was just basically, you just push it down and make a contact. It was very simple. And the reason that the flashlight became viable was because of battery technology. And so the D-cell battery, which we use today, was invented in 1898. And there was a number of companies that developed them. One of the most common one is Burgess, who put the best batteries out starting in 1913, and everybody else copied it and moved on. So anyway, we'll talk about why they are called flashlights, because, you know, the battery technology was dismal early on, and so that if you had an early flashlight and you pushed the button, it would only stay on for just a very short time before the battery would run out of power. And so it just gave a flash, and there you go, flashlight. So anyway, they had made a lot of different types of batteries and a lot of different materials and whatnot, and by 1917 they were doing really good. And like I say, Burgess was probably one of the major suppliers, and they used to use what was called dry cells too. They were the largest manufacturer of them, and they used to use them in the old early telephones and all kinds of devices around the farms and whatnot. So anyway, the first flashlights, like I say, the tube is made out of paper and fiber, and as technology came on, it was a stuff called vulcanite, which was probably made out of soybean extract and stuff like that, but it was fibrous too. They called it vulcanite. Later on there was a material called bakelite, and then the tube started being made out of brass and copper, aluminum, and the last of them were steel. Alright, well, we're just going to start going through them. They're not any real order on them, but these are Winchesters, made by the Winchester Firearms Company. This is a fairly early one. They started selling them, I think, in the late teens. But anyway, this one is a late 30s or early 40s. Has a glass lens. The tube is made out of brass, and it's nickel plated. And the switch here is very small and has a little recess in it, so it's protected. You have to push down and on, and that way it can't get bumped off. Here's a later version of it. This is a 1940s glass lens again. And the switch on this one's unique because it has three positions. That's off and on, and this little button here you can push down and flash it. Then all the way forward is full on. And this has a little device to hang it up. Those were first introduced in 1926. And here's a small one. This one's made out of copper and chrome plated. And this is a very simple low end one. This is on and off. Glass lens again. This is a 40s. And here's a little bit, this is the late 40s here. And the name Winchester is stamped in right across the back here. It's made so you can stand it up there. And there again, a 3-position switch and a glass lens. Well, our next batch are rail vacs. Most of you are familiar with their batteries. Older people remember them making flashlights. This is a 1930. It's made out of copper. Has a 3-position switch and a glass lens again. That's Art Deco. That's a period I really like the best. This is an unusual one here. It's a 1950s. And the switch here, come over and show you. Instead of pushing it on and off, it has a switch side like this. And it says Nighthawk, and it's got a picture of a hawk and a rail vac name right under it. And this is made out of copper with nickel plating, glass lens. There's the name across the back. This one looks like it's missing the base, and it isn't. This is a lantern and trail lamp. It uses a number 918 battery, which is a rectangular battery. It comes right on here. Right under here the terminals would come through. There's an insulated for the positive and the ground on the back here. It has a glass lens, and it's made out of aluminum. It has 2 switches, one for the headlight, one for the tail light. Kind of a unique piece. Okay, our next batch. These are kind of one of my favorites. These are Sears, since I like collecting Sears stuff. This is a Sears Home Art. That says Scout on it. I'll bring it over here. It says Home Art right across here. It says Scout right there. Has a compass built into the back. It's made out of brass. Has a 3-position switch and has a glass lens. That one is made in the late 30s. Here's another one. This is Lightmaster Deluxe. That's an Art Deco. It has a lens in here that has a deal to focus the light, and it's Art Deco again, like I say. And the thing that's interesting on this lens is that 3 positions here. There's off, and then you regular spread out light. You just and then go all the way in it. It's a fine focus. So we got flood, spot, and off. Another piece of innovation. Well, this is our last Sears one. It's a Sears Explorer. And this was made in the 60s. It's for camping and outdoor. Still has a glass lens in it and a 3-position switch, but it's just your common basic flashlight. Takes 3 D cells. Okay, our next 2 are another common brand, Everready's. And this one's a 1948. You can see it's a brass tube. It originally had light plating on it, nickel plating and stuff. Just a simple, straightforward flashlight. It used to have a couple of stripes on there, red and blue. And this is a later version of it. It's made out of the same materials, but been painted. This is a 1952 version of it. Okay, this batch are obviously newer because they're made out of plastic type material. These are Burgess flashlights, and Burgess, like I say, was one of the major suppliers of batteries for flashlights and other things, dry cells and D cells and whatnot. So this one has the name across the back, which you won't be able to see, and has a plastic lens, and it's just a simple on-off model. And it's a early 60s. And here's a little bit later Burgess. It's a later 60s. It says heavy duty safety cushion, so if you drop it, it doesn't damage it. All plastic, and this one does have a hanging ring on it. And this one here, this is real late 60s, early 70s. Base, it's made out of aluminum and plastic top, and does have a 3-position switch, but it also has a magnet so that you can hang it up on a wall on something metal. So anyway, we'll move on. Well, these two are different. They're made by the Permissible Electrical Flashlight Company, or the manufacturer's actual name is Stuart R. Brown of New York City. These are what's called a safety flashlight, and what they were for were used in areas like where there's methane gas in mines and stuff like that. The switch is sealed so that it can't ignite the methane and kill you and all your buddies. So there. This one says US on it. These were used by the military, and they were made a bakelite. And this basic flashlight came out in the 30s and made clear through the 70s. A really high quality flashlight. Glass lens instead of plastic. Okay, well, this has an unusual feature too. Is the clip to hang it is designed so it can be hung on a clip on the wall or on your belt. Another great idea. Okay, this is a oddball. It's called a Fulton. They're made in the 50s and the 60s. Has a glass lens on it. Has an unusual feature here. You take off the very bottom here, and it comes with a whole bunch of different lenses. And then the other thing that it has a battery pack that's all one piece here. So it's 4.5 volt flashlight battery pack, and it says on here if it ever corrodes and ruins your flashlight, you get a new one for free. Well, guess what? Yeah, the other thing that's unusual is this hanger on it. It fits down into a recess here like so. So it's completely flat, so you can stand it up. Okay, this flashlight here, there's absolutely no name on it at all. And the tube is made out of brass with a light nickel plating. And I'm thinking it's probably 50s or 40s. It has a plastic lens, but it has a switch here. And it, so you can turn it to standard spotlight or a floodlight, and then your on-off switch is separate. And it has 2 settings, so you can put it on one for lower voltage and higher voltage. So just another unique piece. Well, we're getting towards the tail end here. So what we've got here are Brand X knockoff flashlights, and so they're copies of older American ones, and they're made in the Far East, and they have some really interesting names. This one here is my favorite one. On the very back here it says U.S. Industries Incorporated, made in Hong Kong. This one actually has a plastic lens, and it's got a logo here. You can't read it anymore, and it's got the handle here to hang it up. And it has a 3-position switch on it also. This is a copy of an older one, an older American flashlight. This would be something like made in the 40s, but this probably was made in the 60s. And it says 555, and there again a 3-position. This one actually has a glass lens on it. But the thing that is interesting on these is the metal is really, really thin. You know, they're chromed and nice looking, but the metal in them is really, really thin. So this is a real nice clean one here. It says True Value, and has a plastic lens, but it's made in USA, amazingly enough. the last one here, this says Flying Eagle. And the country of origin, I can't even figure out what it is, but it has an interesting feature here. You can turn this back and forth, and what it does is it changes the focus of the light from a flood to a spotlight. And then of course it's got a 3-position switch on it. And then there was a little rage here for a while making little cheap pocket flashlights. They used a AA cell, and they don't even have lenses on them. They're so cheesy, but a lot of people bought them. So we got one more thing and be right back. Okay, well, here's some of the last of the stuff. This little flashlight here, you can change this to the lens on it so that you can get a spot or a floodlight. And the thing that's weird about it is actually has a hand-powered generator in it, which doesn't work anymore. It says it's made in the UK, so it's probably Hong Kong because that was part of the UK. And then the other thing it has is here in the bottom there's a little piece to stick in a cigarette lighter on your car. Yeah, there's lots of gimmicks on this stuff over the years. This is a kind of a weirdo piece. It's made in Russia. And it's a hand-powered flashlight with a generator in it. So there's a little lever on the back. You pull back and the handle comes out, and then you start pumping it. And then there's a switch up here, and you can have it so the light bulb has 2 elements for low beam and high beam, just like your car. Imagine that if you're out on a trail somewhere hiking, you've got about 5 miles to go. Then last thing we have here is just a little accessory. This is new in the box still. It's a little flashlight holder, so if you're working on your car or something like that, you know, you can put it out and you can adjust the up or down like that. But anyway, that's a Nurco AutoVac adjustable flashlight holder. So the last thing we have here, well, with flashlights you always got to have batteries, so here's an old vintage Rayovac. And Rayovac was one of the big players in the flashlight batteries and flashlights for a long time, and they sold out to Everready, I think in 1997, so these are a thing of the past. And this says Kent, and it doesn't say where it's made, but it's an offshore battery. And these always leaked and ruined their flashlights and stuff. And here's an early one that says Guild Alkaline, so that's a private label one too. But anyway, so there's an overview of flashlights, how they came about, and why you should collect them. So we'll see you soon on the next exciting vintage video. Vintage is good.